Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Resident Alien Season 3, Episode 5. Almost forgot what episode it was. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode where we have Harry and Heather so madly in love, and they're just hanging out, freeing birds from a pet shop, and just doing their thing. Kind of almost doing the Lady and Tramp thing with a worm instead, which I was thinking for a second. I was like, would Harry even eat a worm? But it's like, no. I mean, maybe he would, and maybe he has, and I just don't remember. But he's also doing it because he's so madly in love, and it's just like, oh, you're so disgustingly in love, which is beautiful. Which, you know, Asa's torn between, like, yes, I'm glad that you're, like, happy and everything, and I'm happy that you're happy, but I kind of also want you to focus on saving the Earth, too. You remember that thing that you were on this mission for doing before your new kind of girlfriend showed up? And they proceeded to have sex everywhere, including, it's like, oh, we had sex in your car. It's like, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, we had sex in the back of your car. I mean, we didn't have sex in the front car, but then later it was like, actually, I lied to you. We had sex in the front of the car, and we didn't wash it out or whatever. It's like, Jesus, they've been, like, humping like rabbits all over the place, so. And I think it's so interesting. I mean, there's a deeper layer to that of, like, Harry hasn't really had a relationship really. I mean, I think it's really interesting because it was kind of a point that Asa was bringing up last episode of, like, right, it's kind of been her and Harry for so long. Asa has been, like, his fundamental relationship on here on Earth. And he's gotten decently close to other people. That includes Darcy as well. But Asa's, like, the foundation of why he didn't wipe out the planet. But that's kind of pulled away from Asa. Now Heather's kind of represented, because it's like, right, there's a different type of love with Heather. Plus she's also an alien, so they are similar in a lot of ways, so it makes that relationship a little easier. It's a lot of fun. I think you don't have to worry about the stresses of trying to save the world and everything. He kind of gets straight away from that. But like I said, his like dedication to him and Asa's relationship is what saved the world. But now his relationship with Heather, I mean, he's saying, like, at the end of the day, it's like, well, I'll figure out what the Greys are up to. I'll give this information to the general, and then the general can act upon that. So yeah, the world will be fine, because later on he says, like, yeah, me and Heather are gonna go to her home planet. And you're like, really? With everything going on, you're just going to abandon Earth? Because I figured when it's like, oh, can, you know, Heather come over for dinner? And Asa's like, sure. I was like, I knew that was going to blow up in their face. I wasn't expecting that reveal of, like, yeah, I'm going to leave with her. So the whole point was like, right, let's, you know, Harry's happy. That's fine and dandy. Does kind of suck that Asta and Darcy are in the position of we're single. And it's like, please to God, let there be a reason that we're choosing to be single rather than just, like, you know, single just for single's sake. I also was curious about that kiss, that, like, awkward, disgusting kiss. I mean, there's something sweet about it, I mean, to some extent, but it's also just, like, super uncomfortable. I just saw, like, a community tab on YouTube from the Sci-Fi Network where they said, like, yeah, apparently that was improvised. I was like, makes sense. Because if you look at the coverage of, like, how that's filmed, it's like, right, there's footage of, like, Harry and Heather, but then, like, Asta and Darcy, like, it's not all in one shot. Like, obviously, it's like you pan over to their reactions. I wonder how did they film that? I mean, it's like, obviously, you probably have to cut out some, like, maybe them laughing in the background, or just, like, at least a coverage of, like, them holding it in, and, like, because there's no way you could keep a straight face. I mean, because it's designed just so you see their reactions of, like, how disgusted they are by it. And it's just, like, it's a lot. Could you even see the actress who plays Heather? Like, her mouth is in Harry's mouth. I think that was even her tongue on the side of his face, and she's kind of, like, almost, like, yelling or, like, moaning into his mouth. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that is so weird. I got it, dude. The behind the scenes to that scene has got to be nuts. I mean, how do you do that? That is committing to the bit. You know, it's like you found your bit, you commit to it. Holy shit. I also love that Darcy and Asta's way to deal with this is like, well, we've got to get Harry to not leave with Heather. It's like, well, the only solution we can do is, well, we got to get rid of Heather, which Darcy was all about. Like, sure, I mean, how do you get rid of a big bird? I guess we got to get a big snake. It's like, no, I didn't mean to actually get rid of her. We're going to, in that way, we're going to talk to her and basically convince her to break up with Harry. It's like, oh, I get it. We'll do that for plan A, but plan B will be, the backup plan will be, to get rid of her. So, and the fact is Darcy was super okay with that, I think is kind of very, very concerning. But their plan doesn't work. I thought that was weird how... I mean, because they were making the whole point of, like, right, there's no secrets. And I love that he had thrown... it's like, Darcy's like, oh, he must have talked about me. It's like, no, he hasn't mentioned you at all. And Darcy's like, really? Like, the thing is, we went on dates and we kissed and, yeah, it was awkward. It was nothing. But you sure as hell threw Asta under the bus saying that she, like, touched you inappropriately. He was like, yeah, it was traumatizing. It's like, Jesus, Harry. She's like, I was trying to save your life, But it's like, yeah, they don't keep anything from each other. So later on, Darcy and Asta are there trying to talk to Heather about, like, oh yeah, the terrible things about Harry. You haven't really met any of his friends, have you? Because he doesn't really have any, trying to make him seem bad. But then Harry ends up being there. It's like, that's so interesting. Because it's like, I at first was wondering, like, you don't think Heather has, like, some kind of mind control over Harry? Especially in that particular scene where he rips into Asta and Darcy. He said some very ugly things to them. Doesn't mean it's not true, but there's still ugliness to it where it's like, hey, Asta, you only help people because it's your way of helping yourself, because that's the only way you feel like you can get love from people. It kind of makes sense when you look at Asta's character and just, like, how complicated her life is. Abandoned by her mom. The complicated thing with, like, her and Jay, like, her kind of repeating that cycle in her mind, abandoning Jay, like, leaving her with a different family. Obviously, like, her abusive marriage. So it's like there's a lot there, and it's like I help people by making because I want to feel help. She's the type of person, like, I want to find someone that's broken so I can fix them. And it's like, right, then you and Darcy have that kind of similar relationship. And he's pointing out the fact is that Darcy is incapable of kind of giving love back to anyone else, basically saying that it's not the exact word he used, but he was basically referencing her as, like, an empty void. And he said, I was like, wow, that's hurtful. And in that moment, I was like, is that even Harry speaking? Is that just Heather talking? But it's almost like a thing of he's so in love that it's like, yo, let the haters speak. We can't be around these haters. We need to, like, bask in our love and not be around them. It's like, because he, got blinded by love, which, it's a beautiful thing, but he even brings it up later on. There needs to be a balance. He said, like, right, because of the imbalance in Asta's life when it came to Harry and stuff, it almost caused her relationship with Darcy. And so he was saying, like, right, and Asta, he's like, yeah, I said some stuff to Asta, but he's like, yeah, she's most likely going to show up here apologizing to me along with bringing some pie, but it ended up not being her, but we'll get to that. And I even love Darcy and Asta were kind of sitting across from each other, like, what Harry said wasn't true, and it's just like both of them kind of recognizing the truth of it about each other, but not the willingness to recognize it in themselves. But it's like, yeah, there is something to that, where it's like, Darcy's like, no, I'm a good person, I care about my friends, and Asta's like, he's like, yeah, it's like, no, what do you mean, yeah? It's like, no, I was just, yeah, no, you were saying yeah after I said I'm not a good person. She's like, no, that's not what, Harry's saying, like, I just want to help people just to make myself feel better, that's the only way I could get love from people. And Darcy's like, quiet for a second. It's like, yeah, that's crazy. He's like, why'd you hesitate? What are you talking about? He's like, you hesitated when you said that. So they were kind of almost at each other's throats for a second there, but once again, it's kind of that ugliness that is like, right, Harry didn't have to say what he said. To be fair, Harry's always said some foul shit regardless because he has no tact whatsoever. So it's not like it's anything new, but he kind of went for the jugular. But at the same time, it's like, as we see throughout the episode, there is give and take with it. It's like, I think it's an important self-reflection thing to kind of recognize that about yourselves. But then also, it's like, as we see with Darcy, it comes from some ramifications because her feeling like, oh, like, I can't really love anyone. I'm not there for people, that I'm selfish, that it makes her, the whole Ben situation happens later on. So it kind of adds, like, because even Asta had warned, like, don't do this, don't tell Ben, because he's happy. Well, happy for Ben, but if you tell him, you could end up ruining everything. And it's like, potentially, we don't know what the fallout is when Darcy basically tells him, hey, you were abducted by aliens, you just don't remember it. I love how they set that up in the episode where she was having that nightmare, and I wasn't quite sure what that was. But then we get it near the end of the episode, and it's like, oh, like that was her and Ben as adults, but that was like because that was her brain trying to make sense of it. And then it's like, right, it's a sealed away memory because she was made to forget as well. But it was back when they were kids. Specifically, it was the night Liv saw a UFO. So now it's like, yeah, they've been taking Ben. I mean, I don't know if they've been taking him the entirety of his life. I mean, to be fair, like, you know, you have the whole situation with Peter's, like, son. So it's like, it does seem like it's their entire life thing of, like, they're, once again, I guess, trying to study humans, and I guess that ties into, like, their full plan. Once again, I'm still just not fully understanding what role the mothers play in it. Like I said, I think it has something to do with, like, the continuation of their own species, but I'm like, are you trying to mimic the human interaction so you can be effective when it comes to the hybrids, or what? But yeah, like my point I was making before I went on that diatribe a little bit there was just the whole point of Darcy kind of walked away being like, well, we're good, I'm good, oh, I felt good, see, I do care, like, you know. But it's like, Ben's just kind of looking around, and it's like, I don't know he knows how to really take that, because obviously he's been a little off, and obviously Kate's been a little off. Kate was in the house at the time. You'd almost hope that she would overhear that conversation. I could definitely hear Ben probably bringing that up to Kate. And I'm like, Ben took it in stride, and you never know, like, what the ramification for that will be. Like, I don't know, especially, like, him thinking that, because it could be a thing of when Kate brings it up later on, he might start thinking Kate's crazy, and that could cause issues. So, like I said, we don't really know the after effects of doing that. And once again, despite Asa being like, don't do it, it's understandable because, hey, I failed you before, I didn't do anything, I want to prove that, you know, it's like, I gotta prove to myself I'm not a selfish person, that I can be there for the people who care about me, not just them being there for me. It's time to make up for not being there for Ben. So, like I said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions and everything, right? So, like I said, we'll have to wait to see the full, like, fallout of what befalls Ben because of that. But Kate's been on the other side of that, feeling that herself of, yeah, like, something's off, because she's talking to Liv, and it's like, yeah, like, oh, what are the signs? Like, the owl thing comes up. It's like, oh, maybe there's something under your skin that proves that you were taken. She didn't find one on herself initially, so I was thinking, like, oh, she's gonna find one on Ben or something, but that could end up being something we see. But she found the marks on the back of her neck, and it's just, like, sending her spiraling even more. Because obviously Liv was like, yeah, I want to be abducted. She's like, really, you do? She's like, no, I'm just kidding. It's like, oh, okay. No, but really I do. It's like, yeah, but here's a support group for people, you know, but she doesn't want to go. I could definitely see her popping up in the future, if not the next episode, some point soon, because she found those marks. So, and my point from before too is like, how is she going to, what is her and Ben's interaction going to be going forward with these revelations? Whether Ben really acknowledges what Darcy said, or even just Kate figuring things out on her own, feeling like maybe she can't confide in Ben because he's going to think she's crazy, or maybe he acts a certain way being like, oh, you are crazy. So, speaking of Liv, her and Mike were in the middle of their investigations because they found the notebook from last episode in Peter's secret compartment, but they don't know what it is. But it ended up meaning something to Harry, who went there to check because Asa was finally able to get in contact with him, being like, yo, the van, you were the last person there, might have been some DNA. But he's like, oh, I used some barbecue wipes and, like, wiped up. Like, there's not a single, like, strand of me there. It's like, but where is this van? It's like, you're not going to go there to have sex in the van. He's like, of course I wouldn't do that, you know. But he felt like, oh, like, neither Liv nor Mike have anything on me. If they did, they would have arrested me now, so I'm good. But he got the equation he needed for what the Greys are up to, which we'll circle back to that. But focusing on Liv, I forgot what it was specifically. There was something that they were getting something ran, and they were going to look into something. But the problem was Liv saw, like, a note left about, like, oh, like, her being so focused on alien abduction stuff. And she beats herself up saying, like, right, if it wasn't for me, if I wasn't so caught up in, like, this alien stuff, I've gotten people killed. Like Peter, he wouldn't even been here in Patience in the first place if it wasn't for me contacting him. So, And just like she's putting a lot on herself for that, which I'm like, I wonder is that her grandma that did that? It's like, well, we know she's the one they ran her mouth off to like the people at the paper, which makes you go, who, like, I mean, why you want to tear, like, whoever it is must have a vendetta against Liv. I mean, generally speaking, no one hates Liv. Everyone loves Liv. I mean, from what we can tell. So you can only assume it had to be her grandmother still, like, fucking with her a little bit. You know, her grandmother is spiteful towards her. Like, I don't know whether she's just ignorant to how mean she comes off, or whether she, like, definitely knows she's doing it on purpose. That's unclear. But, yeah, Liv bounces, and it kind of leaves Mike on his own. But he ends up running into Lena, who's like, right, I heard about, you know, the person whose prints I went looking for and found them, and that said Dr. Wendy is murdered. It's like, I needed to make sure, check you, like, see your face to see if you are actually okay. Because she's like, I know that if I talked to you on the phone, you just say you're fine. And he's checking in with her a little bit. It's like, oh, how are you? How are your boy? And she's like, we're okay. Because he won't open up. He's still so reserved. So, and trying to say, like, yeah, I'm fine. You don't have to worry about anything. And it's just like, yeah, if you could just open up a little bit. But it's like, you know, you're stuck in your ways. You're very rigid. Even though it's like you still have feelings for her. You're probably not going to bring up the whole Judy of it all either. Probably don't want to bring that up without some complicating things potentially. So I think Lena's the one he ran into, well, was following him when he was like walking on his own, and he's like, yo, Joseph, come out, I know it's you, and whoever it was ran away. I think it was Lena that was following him. I don't think it was Joseph. I mean, well, Joseph makes his move later on, and like near the end, at the end of the episode. So I'm like, why would he go after? Like, not unless you're trying to go after people that are important to Harry, but like the go-to person would be Asta or Darcy. Like more so Asta than anybody. But it's like, I guess it's like you already tried going down that route, didn't work before. It's like, I guess getting to Asta will be a little harder. Like you'd have to like. Now, I guess it's like you've been watching him enough to know that. I mean, it could just be a thing of he was watching to see who Harry interacts with the most. That just all seems very unlikely to me. It just feels like Lena's the. I mean, it could just be someone else, but it just feels like it's Lena keeping an eye on him because it's like I can't let you know that I'm keeping an eye on you because you'll like still like get all machismo about it and not want me to look after you. But it's like even despite everything, she showed up face to face because she does care and she's worried. It's like, so I'm going to have your back because she probably talked to Liv and Liv's kind of stepped away, and it's like, right, people came after Wendy's, so you guys are snooping into this stuff. There's some pretty clandestine stuff going on here, so I, you know, if you're not going to ask for help, I'm going to actually end up helping you. I think that's kind of probably where she's coming at from all of this. So that's where my mind is with it being like I said, Lena seems to be the most likely person following him, but we'll wait and see on that front. You had the whole situation where Max ended up stealing the whole experiment that Harry was working on. It's like you were too busy banging it out with Heather to know that he snuck back in there, snatched it, because his mom doesn't want Ben helping with the with this, like what he's working on and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I just didn't want Max to get bullied at school, is what Ben was saying. And Kate's like, no, in fact, they'll think he's cool for not caring about science. It's like, well, I mean, unless they're like, you know, nerds. But like, who cares? But who cares what those? Unless they're dorks, it's like, yeah. But who cares what like those nerds actually have to say? And Ben's just like, you think about taking a sabbatical? She's like, all the time. It's like, Jesus, Kate. I'm sure every teacher feels that pull, probably on a pretty daily basis. Being a teacher can be a very thankless job because, like, yeah, let's face it, kids suck. But either way. But Max tried out his experiment, which I love both. Kate, and the moment Kate and Ben were like found out he stole it, they're like, yeah, I should have. I figured as much. I knew it. It's like, yeah, we should have kind of. Ben's even like, I knew from the beginning, and Kate's like, does that make us bad parents? And Ben's like, we're not great. So, but the experiment situation, it benefited Harry because now he knows what the Greys are up to. It turns out that they are basically going to terraform the planet because Earth's gravity isn't habitable for them, so they want to make Earth's gravity more habitable for them so that they can take over this planet. You know, once again, terraforming it in that capacity. So that's what their grand plan is. He hasn't really told anybody about this, even post discovering it, because I don't think he's run into Asta or Darcy since then. And he already saw the general early in the episode when he was getting the final ingredient he needed for this whole concoction to conclude his experiment. And obviously he was telling a joke to her, and she was like, "You really think this is all a joke?" Obviously, like, he doesn't know how important this is to her, how she lost the most important person to her and her dad, and how that's haunted her for decades. It's been the motivation, because, like, you know, very much in the Liv case of, oh, she was small and, like, no one believed her about what went down and what happened, so, like, she's carried that with her. So, especially because before she ran into Harry, she was just thinking about her dad too, so it makes it cut even deeper when he's out there taking this whole thing as a joke, when he should be focusing on, like, the job is at hand, like, so many lives are at stake. We also had the situation with, what's his face, David. He even said, like, Peter's not, it's like your brain's not working, so I guess he's like, his body is being kept alive, but it kind of implies like his brain is dead, but maybe it just needs to be jump started. I guess they're going to make him more robot than human going forward. I mean, we already saw it a little bit with his eye and stuff being replaced, but yeah, because of it, they can activate his vision to see, hey, he can see aliens now, so we can see it too. So slowly but surely, that operation is pulling forward. Who knows how much longer they're going to be before they are able to put Peter back into the field as their ultimate weapon of sorts. I'd skipped over it, but there's actually this really, I say skip over it a lot. I mean, just, I forgot. There was that conversation between Asta and Jay's adopted mom, because I thought that conversation was going to be a lot more volatile than it was, but it's like, no, it was very great conversation, because she's like, no, I gave her the okay to stay over with you. It's just like, to make sure you don't lend her your charger, because if you do, you'll never get your phone charger back. But it's like, I'm glad that telling Asa, it's like, right, I'm glad she has you. And it's like, yeah, like, having that moment it's kind of fun and everything, but for her, it's like, what ended up happening is, like, Jay has a girlfriend and she wants to go to Europe with her, but it's like, no, you can go to Europe with a girlfriend, that's fine and dandy, just make sure you go to college and get a college degree first. And that's kind of like a point of contention. So it's like, right, if she's with you, maybe you can kind of focus her up to kind of, you know, while these, like, applications come back, determining whether or not she's gotten to these colleges or not. So kind of thinking about the future and stuff. So I thought that was kind of just a really nice bonding moment between them. It's like, right, we're not, like, at each other's throat. Like, we had our complications before, but we're in a good spot, because, you know, it's like, right, Asta recognizes how good Jay's mom is, and also Jay's mom recognizes, like, no, Asta's good, and I know she's going to be a good influence for her, and I'm glad that she has you in her life, too. I'm glad you're there for her. So I thought that was so beautiful. So that also kind of slightly plays into the whole point that Harry had kind of thrown in her face about, once again, kind of helping people to kind of feel love on some degree, or feeling loved in that capacity. Which, speaking of love, sadly we have Heather at the end being grabbed up by Joseph, who's like, you're going to get Harry's DNA for us, because the Greys wanted Harry, but it's like, right, we don't need him as long as we can just get his DNA, because they're trying to operate the orbs. And ultimately, he's like, right, once you do, you're going to leave this planet and not take Harry with you, because I guess it's the whole thing of they need to test it out, maybe, and that's why they only need the DNA, or they need Harry's DNA, but they're eventually going to kill him. Maybe that's also why they want him to stay, because it'll be easier to kill him on this planet than anywhere else, or maybe they need his help with something else, I don't know. But it's like, yeah, she's kind of forced to be, it's like, right, if you don't do this, we'll kill you, but it also will kill him, so you kind of have no choice in the matter. So, and especially because they make it as heartbreaking as possible, considering he's, like, playing on this song on the guitar about how love is forever and stuff. You're like, oh, poor Harry, not seeing this was the calm before the storm in a lot of ways. You know, it's like, because you're like, you knew this wasn't going to work out. I mean, because there was a whole point of, hey, she was going to leave anyway, but now it's like, well, she was initially going to leave and take Harry with her, but now it's like, nah, she kind of has to leave Harry behind. So that's going to be interesting and heartbreaking at the same time. So this season has blowing by so quickly. And I guess the reason why it feels even more so like that is because season 2 was so long, especially because there was it was quite a few months in between the first half of season 2 and the second half. So I'm sure that's probably extra reason why it feels like this is going by so fast, even though like both halves of season 2 were going to be the same. This season's going to be the same length as those individually. This is only going to be an 8-episode season. I think season 1 was 10, so that's probably extra reason why it feels even quicker. But I'm excited to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.